Hello. We'll get going in just a little while. Maybe make sure the gears are turning. Wait for some folks to join us. Say some hellos as people stop by. Friday. Folks want to go to the Discord server, which is the middle. I always do it the wrong way. Here, it's adafru.it/discord. See how many people we have show up today. Hi, 3D Tech Guy. Thanks for joining. I'm in the live broadcast chat channel on Discord. Hello, Beata. Yep, we hit 2 o'clock. It's when we officially start. Sometimes I like to hit early just in case it doesn't work, which has happened before. Hi, Relic. All on YouTube. Sorry, my ears are plugged up a little bit. All right, well, I might as well get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Scott. I go by Tan Newt online. I work on CircuitPython for Adafruit. Adafruit is, hi, Justin. Adafruit is an open source hardware and software company based out of New York City. I work remotely for them from Seattle. You can see up here the window. It's a pretty nice sunny day. This CircuitPython is Python designed for microcontrollers. So here's one off my desk. This is a BLE Nordic NRF 52840, has BLE support. And this form factor is called a feather, so there you can put other things on top of there. That's what Adafruit does. So Adafruit takes, oh, I flipped it up. Adafruit takes little microcontrollers, puts them on boards, and making it really easy to do projects with them. And CircuitPython makes it easy to program them. So it's the Python language, really great for beginners. You plug it in, it shows up as a drive, and there's a code.py file on it. You just edit it, you save it, it reruns, it's great. So this is a deep dive where I go into whatever I've been working on during the week. I'm one of the main folks that works kind of under the hood of CircuitPython, usually in the deep bowels of of C under CircuitPython. But today, kind of my main thing is I'm finally circling back to Matter support. Matter is an IoT protocol, and I'm actually doing that in Python. So we'll have a Python layer that right now works on CPython, which is like desktop Python. But the intention is to add all the little bits that we need so that we can move it to CircuitPython as well. It is deep dive, and I know a lot of random stuff as well, so I'm happy to try and answer questions, although I may redirect you to some other folks. So a couple more hellos. Suraj on LinkedIn and Mark in Discord. 3D Tech Guy has a question. I'm getting a Raspberry Pi 3B Plus. Is it a good one? Depends on what you want to do. It's a couple generations behind, but you probably can do what you want. It depends on what you want to do with it. I know the Pi 5 is the most recent, but I don't know. I don't know how it compares. I don't do a lot of Raspberry Pi stuff, so I can't really say. If other folks have questions, I'm more than happy to try and answer them. Otherwise, I will try to get some work done, I guess. One thing I like to do, and let me know if you want this, is I do sometimes like to go over kind of things I've done during the week. And I did have a number of bug fixes. Yeah. I'm a teacher trying to get my kids into CNC. Do you know how to get wood block attached to my CNC to mill to Jenga brick, and I'm using the desktop CNC by Bantam. I'm sorry, I do not know the answer to that. I just read it out loud. Maybe somebody else would know. Maybe somebody on the Discord would know. So I'll even type in a link into the YouTube chat. There are people that are way more capable at the physical things than I am. I am very much a software person. But we do have some help with channels here. Maybe in the 3D printing or help with projects, I would ask there. There are definitely more knowledgeable people on the Discord than me. So that's what I would say is like, I don't know. 3D Tech Guy says, I just want to do some physical programming like servos and LCDs. Daniel, who asked the question about the wood block, says, I'll definitely join. Thanks. No problem. Servos from Raspberry Pi. So the faster computers get, the worse they are at interfacing with the outside world. Oh, hello, a cat. Thanks. So microcontrollers are really good for servos and small LCDs. But if you're doing HDMI stuff, Raspberry Pi is great for that. Servos, you'll probably end up with a separate I2C controller, and that should work from the Raspberry Pi just fine. Which is probably a good thing, because generally servos you want to power separately anyway. So it should work just fine. That's what I would say. It's just a little bit more complicated than CircuitPython on a microcontroller. On a Raspberry Pi, you're going to have a full Linux operating system, which is super powerful, but also a lot more to learn. All right. So feel free to interrupt me, ask questions. If you watched Deep Dive before, I love to go on tangents and talk about stuff. My plan for today and what my goal is to... So I mentioned last week I'm expecting my second child at the end of next month. And I had this big project that I was working on to implement the Matter IoT spec in Python. And my goal is to get kind of end-to-end that working by the time my second kid is born. So today is me digging back into that, and then next week I'm hoping to go heads down on that. Relic does have a question, and maybe I should address this. Just learned that the RP2350 E9 errata majorly affects one of my projects. Is there any update within CircuitPython or from Raspberry Pi Foundation on the issue? There's a lot, I think the official place to hear from Raspberry Pi about it is their datasheet and what they say on the errata. That's all I know. There's a couple issues on GitHub you can find talking about it as well. The biggest impact that CircuitPython has had from this, so this is an issue they originally said was if you had a pull down and you had the input buffer on, it got stuck at 2 volts or so. The place that we've run into that with CircuitPython stuff is TouchIO support. So I just made a PR, and it'll be in the next alpha, which disables TouchIO on the RP2350. Just so that people don't try to use it. And that's just unfortunate, but it's a hardware thing. It's not really, there's not been a great software fix that kind of gets around it fully. So at this point, it's just something you can't do with that chip. There are lots of that sort of thing. One thing with the new chip is oh, this doesn't work. Oh, this doesn't work. Check the errata is always a good policy. If you look at the errata for other chips, you'll see all sorts of other things. So our plan is to turn off TouchIO because TouchIO uses a pull down. Harry42 says baby monitor recommendations. So what we used for our first, and probably what we'll use for our second, I just have to make sure that they work. I actually have them here. Is this one, just an audio monitor. VTech. I actually have him here. I need to bring him home before the baby comes. You can get it's one baby station and 2 parent units, or one baby station and 1 parent unit. And I think I did actually, the reason I have so many is we did actually get the 2 parent unit thing. So that's what I would recommend. And then I also wanted I was trying to hack it. I kind of wanted to hack it. So there's lights up here that light up as the audio comes in. And I wanted to log the audio peaks so that we could log like when the baby cries. But I have not actually done that. So this is what we use. There are video monitors as well. We use a Google Nest camera for video monitoring. So it's not always on. You just pull it up when you want to look and see what's going on. Otherwise, you have the always on baby monitor thing. They worked just fine. Relic, what were you trying to do that you hit the errata for? And then at some point, the babies get loud enough you don't need a monitor. or you've been a parent long enough that you don't care anymore. So our 2-year-old, like we have the video camera for him, but we don't even have it pulled up. We only pull it up when we want to take a peek. Like in the morning when I wake up and he's not up yet, like I'll take a look to see if he's like sitting in bed or something. This baby monitor is from the first one, and we'll use it for the second one as well. Yeah. Harry42 in YouTube asked about baby monitor recommendations. So I assume I have to make sure it works and bring it back home. I was curious. I think there's an I2C chip or an EEPROM on there that has maybe like the encryption key or whatever, so that they only talk to the specific one. I was wondering if I could like make it 3 handsets by like rewriting it. But I don't know. I probably won't actually get to that. If I'm going to do it, I better do it now. But yeah. Are you expecting a baby? It's fun. It's a lot of work, but it's also amazing. At least I enjoy it a lot. I'm looking forward to it. Not the lost sleep, but having another tiny human. Hamslab says, "Hi Scott, I finally ordered a couple Pico 2 boards. I should see them Monday. Gary explains had a good video on YouTube about using VS Code with it." Nice. I'm not a VS Code user, but that's cool. Whatever gets you into it. The HSTX is my favorite thing. I'm 3 months. In 3 months. Congratulations. Yeah, we don't have to make this parenting deep dive, but I've had fun. Get sleep now. That was my first reaction to hearing the second was coming. Is like, I need to get more sleep. And this week I did not do a good job of that, so I really do need to make sure I'm caught up on sleep. Yeah. Just realized if you're off in a month, I should get this effects API sorted before then. It could be as soon as a month. It may be more like 5 weeks. Yeah, it's more likely the baby's due on the 28th of October, so it will likely happen before, like a little bit before then. Paul says, I'm an empty nester. Congratulations. I can't fathom being an empty nester. I'm turning the middle corner, not the empty nester corner. All right, we got a crew here. I'm reading a serial stream from a weird IC that's being decoded with PIO. The chip is doing some sort of drain on the SDA line that's causing the GPIO to come in at 2.5. I tried to put a 4.7K pull down on the line. Yeah, I think that's in the latest errata. That's the sort of thing they say is like you need an extra oomph to pull it down. Sorry about that, though. HSTX is really cool. Ah. David says, one nice baby monitoring thing I had was a plate you put under the bed, and it detected movement or lack thereof. I think it maybe was Angel Care. The sensor as a jack connector, so maybe I can figure out what kind of signal it gives. I was thinking about that. For the period where we were trying to potty train my son, I was thinking maybe it'd be nice to have like a wet bed detector, but he's been really good about that recently. Kids go through phases. Somebody told me that. Kids go through, everything is a phase, and every phase has its pluses and minuses, is what my understanding has been. Other parents in the chat can agree or disagree with me on there. Yeah. More RP2350 stuff. The Feather is in the shop now. It's out of stock, I assume. But I think more are coming in a couple weeks, so that's exciting. I'm excited for more people to get their hands on it. I know that errata is a bummer for some use cases, but I was very impressed with HSTX for doing 640 by 480 DVI out. It's very cool. So don't forget there's cool things about it too. Don't let one errata hold you up if you're looking for something that's more memory than and more speed than an RP2040. Okay, so thanks for the detour. Let's go to the desktop and I'll show you where I'm at. So my goal is to, kind of in the same way that Mark was like, I should figure out this audio effects API. I'm also like, I really would like to get the CircuitMatter to the point where it actually does something before I completely disappear for only 4 weeks at the start, but then as my wife goes back to work, I'll be out more. So most of my leave won't come this year, it'll come mid next year. Hams Lab says, it's kind of interesting that things here have moved to baby monitors from all the talk about Legos last month. I've been itching to put another Lego set together. I've been kind of holding myself back from getting another one. But in the evenings after my kid goes to bed, it's really nice to get off the computer and off a screen and just kind of do something. And maybe I'm convincing myself to go pick something up on the way home. Probably shouldn't. But I've been kind of hankering for another Lego thing. Especially because when I have a small baby, it's probably not a good idea because that's when they're really sensitive to putting stuff in their mouth. But yeah, Legos will come back. I'm very cyclic in my interests. The rabbit hole that I've been going down outside of work has been, which could totally turn into a work thing. I don't know if folks are into birding. My dad's into birding. And we did a road trip in the spring, and he was telling me about this app on your phone where you can just have it record the audio and it can tell you what birds it's hearing. All that stuff is open source, and so I kind of want to make an ESP32S3 that's just logging, recording on a microphone and then sending it to another computer to do the analysis of it. So I'm really thinking it's time to do I2SN, which I think Tim Chanowski is actually working on, which would be cool. So it'll happen. Yeah, Merlin Bird ID is really great. And then there's a related project called BirdNet, which is what you could run locally if you wanted to. Yeah, did I not say the name? It's Merlin. The app is called Merlin. There's this thing called Bird Weather. Let me not dox my dad, but my dad got this device. Let me show you. Bird Weather. My dad got this device he showed me when I was at his house last weekend. It's like $250, which is not that bad considering it includes, it's backed by a cloud solution. So they're doing all of the AI kind of compute for you. There's no subscription. Relic says, yay, I2SN. Yeah, I think we should do it soon. I'll have to talk with Tim about where he's at on it. But I really need to focus on CircuitMatter to get it to the point where it can actually do something. Yeah, so I was looking at this thing. It's relatively new. It's got this cool map. Can I click the map? I know it's app dot. I've kind of wanted to get into ham, and this is kind of like the you don't have to get licensed version of like, what do you hear out in the world? Which is kind of neat. So there's like a map that you can find all of these different stations, and they're popping up as they do the detections, which is quite neat. I thought it was funny that housefinch is the #1 on here. Interesting that Anna's hummingbird is second. I wonder if that changes if I move. Oh, it does. That's neat. So on the East Coast, it's more blue jays and goldfinches. Yeah, I'm kind of a nerd. I think I'm taking my my tech cred into the bird ID space. Anyway, so my dad showed me this device he got that runs all the time for it. And I think you go here and it shows you what it is. But then it has this teardown of it, and it says straight up, it's an ESP32S3. I'm like, I don't need to spend $250. Like, I don't actually care about all these environmental things. Like, it'd be cool to just put a MEMS mic with an MCU and then be able to just upload it. So that's something I think would be kind of neat. Forever Top Man says, hey, chat, quick question. Anyone know how to clear a screen using the 7789 library? If you want to clear the screen with CircuitPython, you just set your root group to none, and it'll just go black. But if you're using something else or a different library, then or if you're not using display.io, it might be different. But if you just want to show black, you just set it to none. It used to go to the terminal, like the CircuitPython terminal, but I don't think it does anymore. Hams Lab says, I'd love to see a similar app for insects like crickets and tree frogs. So I think like I said, I went down this rabbit hole. The thing it's called BirdNet. And I think, so Merlin is just birds, but I think BirdNet itself is actually trying to do more than just birds. Like there's some new YouTube talks about it, and there's like a BirdNet Pi project that you can run it on Raspberry Pis. I haven't even looked through all these things. But I'm pretty sure, yes. So model versions, 6,000 species worldwide. Global selection of species, birds and non-birds with 6,500 classes. I think that in the talk I watched last night, they talked about adding other things that are not just birds. And yeah, it's all Cornell stuff. Although it's a bunch of the BirdNet stuff was some German folks too. Yeah, very cool. I found it a great way to get into birding. But with the caveat that you're only doing it when they're calling. You don't learn the like by eye stuff. But it was fun. My dad's a birder, so it was a fun way for me to participate. And maybe David says, does it detect baby cries and tell you if they want food, need a diaper, or something else? I don't think so. That'd be kind of handy if it did, wouldn't it? That would be handy. I'm yawning like I already have a baby. Okay, so that's another rabbit hole. But so we had this project called CircuitMatter, and when we were thinking about how to implement Matter, we had kind of two routes to go. One is that the Matter folks themselves have a big and this is why I didn't choose it, library written in C that implements, yeah, sorry, Siren was on my end. I should have said that. So there's this big library from it used to be called the Connected Home IP project. So there still lives, and I should have left that browser open. It's just kind of gigantic and complicated. Project chip, Connected Home IP. And I'm surprised that they didn't rebrand the repo itself, but it is like Matter. Matter is the new name for it. That is, to use that name, you have to make sure that you're certified. So Matter's pitch is that you have really, that it's secure IoT and that you have easy onboarding of devices. So for example, I have an Eve Energy device, which is like a smart plug. And when you get the smart plug, you get this this is the manual, and then there's this QR code on it, and the QR code is unique to that device, which is an interesting challenge. But basically, this lets you connect to it and establish some sort of like secure connection, because you know the data that's in the QR code, or there's also this like backup number at the bottom, and then there's also a passcode kind of encoded in these things along with some other information. So the pitch with, and in my experience, it's worked this way, where like you take your phone, you take a picture of the QR code, Apple Home in my case, or Google Home in another case would then integrate, hello Dishipu, would then onboard the device, which is called commissioning, and then it would just work in your, it would just work within your like smart home ecosystem. And it's meant to be like the interoperable protocol for all the different vendors. So like Apple had HomeKit. Well, this is not HomeKit, but it's kind of like what supersedes HomeKit on the Apple side. But then it also works with Google. So the reason that it's interesting for me is like on the hobby side, you'd be able to make devices with Python that interoperate with these kind of like big player home automation things. So, sorry, I'm so tired. Maybe I should make it cooler in here by switching to the AC, but so I could have gone the route where we take all the C code, build it into CircuitPython, and then kind of carry it with us whenever we need it. But if we operate at the Python level, not only is it the case that we can load the Python when we need it, but also it can be then applied to other cases. Like Blink has been really popular running CircuitPython libraries on CPython on single board computers. And so it's like, if we implemented Matter in Python, then we can move it anywhere Python is. So that's the route we decided to do, which is not a small project. And I have deep dived on this before if folks want to follow earlier in the earlier days of it. But I basically was working on this until the launch of the 2350 and then had to do all that stuff. CircuitPython 9.2 is what has the 2350 support in it. So there is also follow-on work there to fix bugs so that it's ready to go. So I fixed a number of bugs on the Espressif port this week. If you're using Espressif, try the absolute newest. There's like pretty bad BLE leak, memory leak that I fixed this week. If you're using the C6 or any of the other C series or the H2 that uses their USB to serial converter, and you're using it with code.circuitpython.org, I have a fix in that makes it work better with that. Yeah, so I can go into those fixes as well, but like I said, baby's coming. I want to get CircuitMatter to the point where it actually does something. So that the challenge with code is that unless you have really good unit tests and those unit tests are run reliably, you don't have a way to know that it still works or it worked at all. A lot of what we do is just like once people use it, they kind of like test it for you. So since I'm going to be out a lot, I kind of want to get to the Matter stuff to the point where people can use it so that it just keeps being maintained. And we kind of like don't lose as much information about what's happening with it or where it's at. So this is my mini, I'm getting back to it, and now I've got to kind of get my brain into it because it's been about a month. So the RP2350 was right around this time last month. I don't remember the exact date. So it's been about a month since I was kind of heads down on the CircuitMatter stuff. And the CircuitMatter stuff was going slowly but consistently. So it was always kind of like one step in front of another. And so today my goal is just to get back into that so that when I come in on Monday, I'm not starting from a month gap, I'm starting from a weekend gap. And unfortunately, I did a little bit of this earlier, and I'm at a tricky point. So I have two tabs open here that you can't see. Let me adjust the window. So one tab here is my Python code. I'm running Python-m and then CircuitMatter. This runs kind of the main of the module, and this is meant to run as a device. And then the second thing is that we have the ability now to record. One thing I added before I moved on to other stuff was the ability to record enough state and packets so that I could just replay the last thing I did instead of having to have two things actively running, I could just replay the thing that I just did. So this side is the device side, and then the host side, or forget what the terminology is, the commissioner. This is the chip tool, which is the C implementation of kind of the thing that talks to a device and gets it onboarded or commissioned. So what I can do is, if I want to run it live, I remove the recording. So now it says like, hey, I'm listing on MDNS. I'm under this name. I'm listing UDP this port. And if I go over here, I run, okay, I'm going to do pairing. It's already on the network, and here's my passcode. Now if I hit enter, it does a bunch of stuff, and then it says, hey, I'm retransmitting. We go back here, we say, oh, I crashed. So now what I can do, instead of having to worry about running this every time, I can just, it records to the same file. And in fact, I think I checked the recording into the repo, so you could check out the repo and actually run this yourself without having the second thing. But if I run it with the recording, I get the same result, is that we're hitting this not implemented error. Which is really helpful for development, that I don't have to manage like two programs at once. Only like once I get past this step, do I have to like continue getting it working. Oh. Cool Lego thing on Kickstarter. Building blocks power strip. So it's a power strip. I have a food coma from having lunch, I think. So how far did we get? So what are we seeing here? Brickwatt. So we do the MDNS stuff, which allows me to discover this other program to discover me on the network. We do passcode encrypted stuff. So we got an initial secure connection. Hey, Timon. And then we parse the message. We get the application payload. And now we can tell that we've received a read request There's no endpoint. There's a cluster called 31. This is the attribute we're trying to get. And now we're trying to read attributes and basically prep a response. So if I pull up here and we look at, so at the high level, the nice thing about here is the application layer is above TCP and UDP. So this is why I can do CPython and not worry too much about like moving it over to CircuitPython. Is that like, okay, if we're just talking sockets, like I can target the socket API and then worry about everything above on there. So if this application here is kind of, this is the zoomed in version. So I basically had to like go work my way from the bottom kind of up. And action framing, I'm not exactly sure what they're talking about. But the interaction model is kind of the world that I'm living in. And then data model, this interaction model and data model is kind of where I'm living in. So the data and verb elements that help support the functionality of the application. So there's this notion of clusters, which I was just going like, oh yeah, I remember that. So this is one of the things I've added more recently. So TLV is lower level encoding information, and then clusters are at this higher level, which is kind of like, where is it? This file's getting too big. I need to split it soon. But a cluster has a feature map, and then here we're getting into get attribute data. So we're trying to, like, for a given path, return the attribute data IB for it, which is the interaction layer message, basically, or packet, whatever. So what I'm trying to do is to say, like, okay, for field name and descriptor, so look through this cluster, find the attribute that matches, and then we're going to read it, and we're going to encode the result back to reply with it. And then there's all sorts of, there's a basic information cluster. It's got an ID. It's got information about it. It's got a whole lot of attributes. Commissioning cluster, its ID, its info. So yeah. Feature bitmap. Oh, interesting. So I'm like, this is a mix of like the interaction model as how you do it. Let me show the spec. So here's their sample disco ball cluster. Can you tell how old the people that made this spec are? If their spec is around a disco ball. So you have this like standard feature bitmap that can tell you like what things it has. Data type. It looks like it's just mapping values or enum values. And then here's the fields. Oh no, that's pattern struct type. Okay, so here's attributes. So a cluster has a given set of attributes: run, rotate, speed, axis, wobble, speed, patterns, blah, 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 blah. They have types. So that in CircuitMatter land kind of matches these things. So these are number attribute, list attribute, and then these are the names. So this is the name, this is the type of it, and then the ID. If you've, ooh, Rise. Speaking of sockets, my OpenThread module is currently crashing on init. OSL1188 asks, is somewhere a link to this project? So it is Adafruit/CircuitMatter. Which I'm like, my fingers have to stop after circuit. Apparently, it was 2 months ago that I pushed last. July 31st. That seems wrong. Maybe I should make sure that I don't have anything that's more recent. So that's 1, 2, 3, 6, 5. 1, 2, 3, 6, 5 is the last thing I did, but I have changes. So maybe I will at least try to push what I have here. Let's pull up merge. Here's my diff. Oh, so no, I haven't added too much. So it's just the recording that's changed. So I haven't worked on it since the end of July. You're welcome. Which is actually longer ago than... Oh, you know what? I think it was the 8th. Yeah, it was like RP2350 came out the 8th, and I spent the week before that working on making sure we were ready to go. So yeah, I guess that's about right. It's been more like a month and a half since I've worked on this. But everything is up to date, which is good. So, okay, so I've gotten... My mental model for this was, okay, you're a network commissioning cluster, and we're going to define what that means. And then if you want to, one thing that clusters can have, and I don't know if any of these have it, but not only do they have attributes, so we have attributes here, but they can also have commands. Yeah, so they can also have commands. And these are, in my mind, functions. So what I was imagining is that you would basically subclass a cluster to implement the parts of it that you want to implement. I've been thinking about this a lot. Like, we had the same challenge with Bluetooth, where what's the best way to implement something that gets kind of called? And I think my conclusion and my theory with the CircuitMatter stuff is that, like, oh, you want to be a disco ball, right? So this is going to be a disco ball cluster. It's going to have a bunch of these attributes and then some abstract functions, and you have to subclass it and implement the parts that you want to implement. And so what we're doing is we're taking the interaction model layer that's saying, like, hey, I want to read an attribute or write an attribute, and we'll just convert that to what that means in Python, right? So we'll set an attribute or get an attribute, and then we'll do all of the encoding and decoding, which we do the decoding now, we just don't do the encoding. But yeah, that was my theory, is that, like, okay, you want to implement disco ball cluster, you subclass it, you override the things that you need to override, and that's how it'll work. That's where I'm at. I'm not sure that that's how it'll end up, but that's what I was thinking. I don't know if it might require some tricks to make that work, but it could be. I think that's the right way to go about it. I don't know. If you have opinions on how this should work, let me know. But that's kind of where I'm operating at. And then the basic case, so I'm also trying to not get too wide and distracted. I really am trying, like, this is the packet that I get next. How do I handle it? What do I do? And how does that work? So the place that we're crashing is, let's just rerun the replay again, is that if you look here, we're reading the feature map attribute, and it's a feature map object. And it's actually that we have to, like, construct the cluster. I think it's of this general commissioning cluster. Is that what it is? Yeah, so we start the commissioning process. So this is when we construct CircuitMatter, we add 3 clusters. The 0 is the endpoint, I think, which I think these are always supposed to have 0. And then I would expect us to set some attributes on it as well. but maybe I just haven't gotten that far. If we wanted to see, what am I thinking? So then there's this kind of super loop for what do you do with a packet here. So you say, oh, process packet. So there's a loop outside of this, but you're given a packet. Is it secure channel? So this is the like establishing the secure channel. If not, then if you're in the interaction model layer, we're printing stuff out. So this is where received read request is. And then we say, okay, now you can request to read multiple attributes at the same time. So for every attribute in attribute requests, and for every path in that attribute, we let's see. We get every endpoint, and then we say attribute reports append get the report for a given cluster in a path. So this is kind of like dispatching in my brain, where it's like, you're giving me a list of attributes you want to read, and I'm getting the response for that, for each individual one. And then I'm going to try to pack it up and send it back to you, but I haven't gotten that far. And I have to encode it too, so like we're secure at this point. So, okay, we're searching through attributes. Now what do I do? Well, where did I? So I'm crashing in the spot that I want to go back to, which is in 1262. So at 1262, we're saying get attribute data for a given path. And we're trying to construct this attribute data IB. This is the container for attribute data that goes back in response to it. So we're finding the field that has it, and now we're trying to encode the value back into our response packet, or subpart of the response packet. And it turns out that there's a tricky bit that I kind of got hung up on, and I haven't really decided. It might be even like I have to think about over the weekend. So usually with the TLV stuff, so TLV is like a lower level encoding. You say, here's an attribute and it's this type of field. It's an int, okay? And we always know it's an int. So we can just always, well, TLV encoding is really complicated, where TLV encoding has it's short for tag length and value. And so the tag is a byte that says, I'm this type and I'm this long, or this is where you can look for my length. And here's also my like number, my tag number. Maybe it's a word. It might be a word, not a byte. But it like mixes this, like, here's the field I'm talking about and my type. But then if you look at, so we're trying to fill out this attribute data IB. And it takes a version, it's tag number 0, and it's an unsigned int. Okay, great, that's easy, we can encode that. So it's a TLV structure. Path is a little more complicated because it's like a substructure, an attribute path IB, but it's always a substructure. But then data is where I'm at, and it's the tricky part because it's variable. So the tag number is static, it's always 2. Which maybe is what I should take advantage of. But the type itself is variable. So I'm not just encoding the value, I'm also encoding the type of the value. So if we scroll down, and interesting, here's a data where, you know what? I'm looking at this. Oh, that's right. Data version, data. Simple structure, data is 90. A list. Modify a list. delete an item in a list, replace the lists, multiple IBs. Basically, it being variable makes it a lot harder. And so I'm trying to figure out how to know how to encode it when I need to encode it. I was hoping I would be able to just say like, oh, it's an int in Python, and therefore I'll encode it as an int. Oh, here's another missing piece. So, you know, when you say I'm a disco ball, you say I have these attributes. Where'd the attributes go? So like, okay, I'm a disco ball. I have these attributes, and my type is a bool or an enum or a uint8, a uint8, a uint8. It's a list of these other structs. It's a string. It's part of this bitmap or that bitmap. The problem is that these types do not match TLV types. So they have this other thing that says, okay, the interaction model has its types, and here's how you map from those types to the TLV types. And these data types are not, they have more detail than Python's data types. So for example, this is, well, one is unsigned integers are separate from signed integers. Python itself does not distinguish between the two. And you can't just say, I'm not negative, therefore I'm an unsigned int, because there might be cases where your data type is a regular int, so you don't want to encode it as unsigned. And then same for floats, whether you're 4 bytes or 8 bytes. So yeah, there's a little bit of, and I handle this for parsing just fine, but there's this field that's used in 2 spots that is like, you're just gonna like, it's the same tag number, and you're gonna have to tell me what type it is, because I don't know. Like, it's dictated by this higher level. The lower level, it's variable, which the lower level is not really designed for. It's not designed for that, and that's the challenge. So that's my current. Oh, why is it? I'm sorry. I'm yawning. I don't know why I'm so yawny today. I must not have gotten enough sleep. So I guess this is gonna be how it goes. Yawns that catch more yawns. It's true. Yeah, that's why I'm apologizing. So the question is how do I? So I've added this. The TLV encoding stuff is pretty good, but it didn't really have this variable field element. So what I had done in July is added this anything member. And there's shared code for right there with you. It's a lot later in Europe than it is here, because I know you're in Europe. So this is a descriptor, which adds a little bit of challenge to it as well. But all the descriptor stuff is actually hidden in the parent member. But just so when you assign it and unassign it, and then you can encode it into encode element type, which is the first, I think it's just an octet, and then encoding the value into it are done as 2 separate things. But element type here is either done at the like field version. So the thing here is like anything member is a class member of the like, if we look for anything member, maybe it should be called variable. Oh, it's not a main, it's here. So normally what you would say is like at class construction, so the time that you're constructing the notion of an attribute data ID, you know the type of a certain attribute. That's where data descriptors come in really handy. That's what these are. And I think I went down this rabbit hole on a prior deep dive about data descriptors and how they're awesome, but they're also really tricky. This is how you can factor code out kind of across individual attributes. So like I could have two attributes here that are both anything members, and they use the same code, but they talk about different, they reference different attributes on the object. It's confusing, but it's really handy because in the end of the day, it just looks like another attribute from the outside, but it has some code reuse under the hood that makes it trickier. In Python, you may have seen properties where you say like this function at property, and then you can get and set it from the outside as an attribute. You may have found that you might have like two properties that have the same functions. Well, what you can actually do is use a data descriptor to factor out that logic to both of them. Anyway, it's a really cool trick, but you get a little limited by what you're allowed to do, right? So you're only setting and getting a value. And that's okay if you don't need more information about it. But in this case, not only do we need a value, but we need to know the type of the value. And the type of the value is not static, like for this class, so we can't just assume it. So what I was thinking about is, I was thinking about essentially adding a like self data type sort of thing. And then the anything member would actually look on the object itself to know the type of the data it is. Which I think is probably what you have to do. I suppose we could make that maybe what we do is we make it a little more explicit by saying like this is the name of the type field. So we'd say TLV structure anything member takes in tag and type attribute name. Or it could be, yeah, type attribute name is not a bad idea. So we'd say type attribute name. And then is type attribute name. And now we need to do something special for encode so there's like common encode. So we say, okay, we want to encode into. We probably don't need all of this, but let's just take a look. Because this is the function that gets it gets the object. So right now we just have it encode the value, but we actually need like another piece of information from the object itself. So here's how it gets the value. We don't care about that. And in fact, there's this encode element type call. So maybe what we do is we just do a little, we're going to wrap all of this. So we're going to say just return super encode into, and we're going to give it the same arguments, but we're going to cheat it, and we're going to say self element type equals none. But before we get called back by the encoder, we are going to slurp it off. We're going to say self element type. We're going to take it off that outer object. So we're gonna sneakily know what the element type here is, and then we actually have to do more work in terms of encoding as well, unfortunately. Does this make sense? It's a little weird. It's a little weird. Type attribute name, and then we have to say, what's the other side of this? The other side of this is where we crash. We need to say dot data, and then we're gonna know that there's a, what do we call it? Data type? What do we call it? I don't think there's too many weird things like this, so it's kind of okay that it's a little weird. That's okay. I think it's okay. It's a little weird. Oh, where did I do it? This file, maybe one thing I have an hour. Maybe the thing to do is actually restructure this so it's multiple files. You know, that's probably the best use of my time today. It is called data type. In fact, it doesn't go on the data element, it just goes here. So this is we need a mapping between the descriptor type and how to encode it. Actually, that's what I could do. I can have the descriptor, the attributes need to know their data type. Something like that. It's a little weird. It's like very meta, where like the thing we're writing into doesn't know the type, but the cluster that we're sourcing the data value from, like the attribute does know its type. I think. I hope. Okay, so I think this is definitely what I should do today. So I'm gonna refactor because this file's getting too long and I'm getting lost in it. So let's factor out all this cluster stuff. So one file I know I'm gonna want is I don't like that. I would rather name it. I like to name it right when I create it. So I'm going to do paste.py. And then I'm also going to do a cluster. Clusters.py. Something like that. So now I'm going to, this is all crypto stuff. So this crypto stuff, I'm going to snag and session manager I'm not going to grab, but all this crypto stuff I'm going to take out, and it's going to go in here. The other reason to split stuff out is that you can load it when you need it as well. So you can actually save memory. Cluster, basic information cluster. And I think I should probably actually there might need to be even more hierarchy there. Let's take a look at what else is in this file. The top level one I want to keep. I can probably split out these, but let's see what else we have in here. Because I think we also have secure channel protocol code, general code, message is okay. Session context, exchange, message counter. This is all lower level stuff. This IB. This IB stuff probably needs to be. This is more crypto stuff. Let's put it in here. There's definitely APIs that I'm using that are not in CircuitPython right now. So that's one thing we're going to have to do. Oh, I'm in clusters. Let's do all these IBs. I guess I should probably put these in. I'm going to put them in clusters for now, but it's probably... Actually, we'll just do a new file and we'll call it interaction model. These are the... How do you modify your data? Maybe clusters needs to be data model, actually. It's good to use terms that match the spec. Secure protocol code. Crypto definitions. Those can go in here. And I think it would be good to, this elliptic curve stuff, I think only goes in here. So basically now what we have to do is get it back. Now that we've reorganized it, we got to get it back to the point where it works again. But I think that is a good, like we're down, oh, we're still over 1,000 lines. But some of these things here, we may be able to, oh, but there's session stuff. I might have factored out most of the crypto things already. I could factor out all the session stuff too. Maybe that's what I should do. Like if we just take a gander at the diagram, we could just do security. I don't exactly know what they mean by action framing, but maybe it would be good to just break the session stuff out too. I'm a little hesitant because it might be harder to put back into pieces, but let's give it a try. message is pretty core. Maybe this is okay. We can remove this. We don't need that. Let's start here and we'll go. It's a lot of enums. Let's get this working first. Okay, we're not using random anymore. We don't use random anymore because we use OSU random if we actually want random, and if we don't want random, we actually our replay has the random numbers in it, so that the password computation is repeatable. Like our side needs to be repeatable, not just the messages we get back from the other side. Otherwise, your encryption doesn't work. Okay, so well, this is a start. It's not going to work now, so now we got to piece it back together. So if we just go down here, we can say, oh, we're in main. We don't want to be in main. You know what? Let's even be a little smart if we can and say we don't import the paste stuff, the passcode authenticated stuff, unless we are actually going to do it. Script. Okay, this is easy. Paste. And I'm just gonna prefix it. You could also import it to the global space, but I'm not gonna do that. I'm actually just gonna put it all behind it. And I could factor some of this stuff out. Maybe I should. But it's also filling out things. So now it's warning me like, hey, it's not imported. I think what I want to do though is when I get my first message, which I think is this actually. Maybe that one needs to go somewhere else, but this is the very first. I'm going to cheat it, and I'm going to say from.import paste. Generally, you don't want to do this. Generally, you want to import everything right at the start. But I know for a fact that like what happens with a device is that when you're getting on the network, you do this passcode authenticated secure stuff. After that, the thing that's happening right now is that we're trying to establish how to use certificates instead of passcodes. And so I don't know how much overlap there's going to be between the passcode secure establishment and the certificate-based version. So by putting my import not at the top level, only when I need it, I'm just going to save a little memory of importing that stuff until I actually need it. So I'm going to cheat it and import it late. Okay, so, and then the other thing is like, I know it works. So if I want to figure out what I need to fix, I just start from where it crashes, which is a great thing to do when I'm yawning at 3:15 on a Friday, is that I can just fix these bugs until it's crashing at the not implemented side and then get it committed and go from there. I might actually take a bathroom break here shortly too. I can turn it on the window cam actually. In fact, let me just do that. I'm gonna go take a quick bathroom break. I've been drinking lots of water. I will go to window cam and mute my mic, and I'll be back in like a few minutes, like 2 minutes. All right, I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Thanks for waiting with me while I took a potty break. I did go right before I started streaming too. I've just been drinking lots of water. Coding last weekend while sick, I spent hours staring at the dumbest of errors, blind to them. Yeah, I feel ya. I think I'm itching to do a Lego set. If anybody's into Lego and has a suggestion, I'm kind of itching for another Lego set. I got a few for my birthday, but I've built all of them pretty much. I have a 3-in-1 that I haven't done all 3, but I kind of want a new one. I'm taking Lego suggestions, although I'm kind of itching to pick it up on my way home. Mars rover sitting waiting for me. Vehicles, like the kiddo would like vehicles, I think, so that's definitely an option. Okay, so let's try to get focused here. And basic information cluster line 863. And we called that the data model. So I will always import this because we're going to need the basics of it. So we're going to do from import data model, and then 890, or was it 860? Oh yeah. I only have one place I can walk to and get another thing. I kind of like the A-frame cabin. It's kind of pricey, but the A-frame cabin caught my eye too. Hey, look, there's 2 different spellings of commissioning. Is commissioning 1M or 2? I think it's 2. Yeah, it's 2. Okay, let's see how far we get. iterable is not defined. That makes sense. That's why the other file is complaining that iterable is not used. It's saying, hey, you don't use this. But data model does. The Mini Falcon is pretty neat. 75, 375. The Lego piano to be a MIDI instrument. I do feel like I'm like less into the like non-minifig ones, if that makes sense. 93. I'm liking this naming already, though. It's like setting boundaries better. That was 993. Oh, yeah. Get the Lego castle. Don't ask the price, though. The other problem, or the other consideration, is space. I don't have a lot of space. So usually what I'm doing is I'm doing it like I shove it in a closet at home and then get it out just to do a little bit at night and then shove it back. And then when it's done, I bring it here. I could just sort Legos. I've got a lot of random Legos to sort, but they're not. They're just from Goodwill. They're not anything. The Lego lighthouse is a little too big. So I need something that like I can carry here and like it doesn't take too much space. So I can stash it away. But I also don't want something super simple that just takes me a night. So maybe I'll take a look. This one needs to be updated too. Although that one probably wouldn't bother me. Okay, interaction model needs TLV. This is something where I'm like, if somebody knows an LLM tool for this sort of thing, I think this is something that LLMs would be pretty good at, of like iterating like this. I was thinking about this for the build stuff. It's like, run it, take the error message, have the LLM change something, that sort of thing. Event data IB. This is not related to memory factor, but and that's why it's complaining. Let's just say it's data type here too. Could be anything, but I like at least like using the race cars. The last thing I bought was the pullback monster truck, because I have a 2-year-old and pullback things are fun. But the race cars aren't really like, except then you end up with accidentally working code. I'm forgetting the context for that comment. Oh yeah, with the LLM thing. I mean, as long as you still have to test it and make sure it does what you want, but like, it's just a speed boost for the same process. Like, if I didn't have to actually like make these changes, I could just say yes, 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 no. Like, it'd still be quicker. TLV in data model. Random. Data model. I think I've convinced myself. We'll see. 5 minutes away from a Lego store. Oh, that would be dangerous. I have to at least walk like 10 minutes the opposite way from home. and then carry it for like 30 minutes. My wife wouldn't be super happy with me. Although I did bring some in today. So I brought some from home here. Okay, TLV and the pace stuff. Which makes sense. Race cars implemented with CircuitMatter. It is kind of fun to think about. Session parameter struct. Is this a circular import? You know what? Maybe I'll just... Session parameter struct might be... Let's make a session one, but we'll only put that in it so far. Because it's probably where we're going to want to put stuff that's shared between... Oh, did I? Press the wrong button. This is the problem with... I do have trouble because I don't have unlabeled keys occasionally. Or my keys aren't labeled. So like sometimes getting my... And then... maybe I'll just... I do think of like, oh, I could have worse hobbies than getting into Lego. I'm still disappointed that the Lego typing machine can only type O. Line 62 also needs it. I don't know why I'm so tired. Hopefully I'm not getting sick. In process packet 946. If I wanted to be good, one thing I can do is my editor can warp me to these lines if it runs it. Status report. Like a lot of this stuff should probably be moved over. In fact, yeah, let's do that. Although this is a compute keys. Actually, let's just call this paste.compute session keys. And then we're going to give it exchange KE. And then the session context. And we'll cut this and say def compute session keys. Is it smart enough? No. That's not what I want. But I don't need exchange here. Doesn't the recent Lego Smart Brick run MicroPython? Yeah, it can run MicroPython. It's not a very compelling, it's an ST chip and it's not that not that grunt. It doesn't have that much grunt. And like one of the places you can get it is through the lighthouse has it, I think, or the train. But like, it's not the train. The train would be super cool, but it takes a ton of space, right? Like you got to lay it out. So, yeah. I think that should go away. And then this isn't used anymore because I'm only using it in here for now. Let's see what it says now. Okay, so this is another 341. This is another case where I think we do want to try to transplant it. It's just that some of the tricky part about transplanting things like this is, and it's not true. Here, we could just do that. Yeah, I know. It's true. So Dishipu says, the problem I have with Lego is that I no longer play with it like I did as a child. It's more like a puzzle now where you follow the instructions and put it back into the box instead of mixing everything and spending hours building random things out of it. That is true for me too, for sure. And I think that's okay. That's okay for me because I still enjoy it and it's not screen time and I have the money to buy it. So I don't need the replayability necessarily. And then I actually thought about this in terms of puzzles too, because puzzles are flat and they take a lot of space. So the nice thing is that if it's a, if it's a house that was like this big or whatever, like it's easy to put away because it doesn't take a whole lot of flat space, but it also like takes you some time. Wonder if we could make a replacement PCB with the RP2040 for the Lego Smart Brick. Whoa, Mark says, I just visited a friend in another city who builds his own creations that are unreal. He's working on a working heart. So the thing that I was thinking about was building so they have these monster trucks that are pulled back, and Ari is super into fire trucks. So I wanted to build a fire truck that would sit on top of the monster truck wheels. But the problem is that if I want to design it, like I either need a bunch of red parts, or I guess I could do it without red parts. But I basically need to have like all my Lego, or a collection of Lego too. Or I need to do it on the computer, and then I'm on the computer and I've lost one of the main reasons to do it. So 984 process packet. It's not a local. Oh. This is not. This NOTS is probably not specific. Crypto AEAD is probably something we want to put in session. Section 3.6. Let's actually look here. Yeah, I don't think it's pace specific. And maybe to be more accurate, no, I guess session is. Let's put it here. Because I don't think it's just for the passcode specific ones. And we might end up importing this into there's going to be a case version too. Yeah. Yeah, design it on the computer, order parts, and then build it. Yeah, but building a big magical tower now with every room having a different thing in it. See, like, are they building that on the, are they planning it on the computer, or just building it because they have a ton of parts they can just pull from? Like, part of the benefit of Lego is that I'm not on the computer. And I feel like it's even more conducive to like chatting with people as you're like looking for parts and stuff. I don't know. I'm very tempted. I'm so sad they canceled Mindstorm. When I had my first salary, I went for some Lego box I never had the money to get before. My Mindstorm RCX is a bit obsolete. Buckets upon boxes of parts. Builds first from blocks and then are possibly wrong colors and then orders the right color parts. Yeah, I could do that. I've actually split out most of my Legos into all the individual sets though, because that was part of what I was doing, is trying to figure that all out. 985 process packet. Interesting. Do I have to put it here too? It should only import once. But maybe nested things are scoped like that. Group size bytes, 989. But I have a feeling that we could do CA and KE paste dot. What are we doing here? I think, how would I describe it? See, the nice thing, one way I can justify buying Legos is I'm about to have kids that can play with it. So like, Ari was here yesterday, and he was like looking at the kit that's put together, and I'm like, oh, I want to play with that. So I just like got it down, and he played for like 15 minutes. So like, part of the reason I'm okay with it is like, I'm gonna have kids that can play with it. Context. I'll just call it that. I think that's right. I'm not going to say verifier. Compute verification. And then this is going to be cut. Was not that. CANKE, I think is what it was. Context and verifier. This is good. This is good. This is good. and I even called it context. Perfect. For my kids, I went for Duplo, smart train that makes sound based on color code. Okay. Oh, and it looks like I need to also do pick 1, pick 2. It's good that I'm deleting all this stuff. Like I'm removing more things than I'm adding. Does Mar-a-Lago thinking with an OLED screen and camera pointing down? I try to avoid, this is the other thing I do try to avoid the branded stuff. Oh, I gotta pass in random too. That's kind of annoying. But that's how I get it to be consistent. Does it just take one random number? No, it passes it in. Crypto PB. All right, random source is not that bad. Let's just pipe it through. It's really nice to be able to just replay it. Random source. I think it's better. Like, it's not doing message decoding, it's just doing the math. Crypto transcript needs struct 146. Could be an interesting thing to hack. Hacking is my day job. 157. Okay, we need hash load too. Sleepy. And HMAC. All things we're gonna have to add. Well, I think we have hash load. Huh. We got to the next step and we need to do the import again. It won't actually import it again. It's imports are like a one and done sort of thing. And we already factored out the math there. Okay, so symmetric key length bits is in session now. That was page, or line 221. That's what we're talking about, though. Overall, I think this is the right. name it something else? Oh. Read request message and process packet. That is part of the interaction model. Which was further down here. And am I importing it? I don't think so. Okay, so I'm not saving a lot of memory because I'm importing pretty much everything. 905. But I am going to make it easier to bounce around between files. I really think I need an editor with a back button. Maybe we need to factor some of this out. I think all these IB things are in their interaction model. Cached values. Did we make it even further? We're in get attribute data. Cluster get attribute data, data.path. I don't think we made it quite as far. I think we're about done. Any final questions before we wrap up for the day? And I see if there's any Lego that I want to walk and get. Data.path equals path. Data model 101. So we're setting it. Attribute data IB is saying cached values is not there. I thought. Oh, you know what I bet? We're not. Data model IB attribute interaction model. I added this data type thing and I did not call the initializer. And is that right? Yeah, I think that's right. That's why it doesn't exist, is I'm not calling the superconstructor. Okay, I'm back to the problem I had, back to where I left off. Okay, I'm gonna get this updated. Push. The repo right now is really just me backing things up. You reformatted my stuff, and that's okay. That's what your job is. Extra lines, I don't care. Report data message. is in the interaction model, and it's complaining about the init one. Interesting. So 1093. So it's actually found a bug. Yeah, because we didn't get that far. This is actually like prepping the response. Let's print the read request and print the response. So that's what I'm going to work on Monday. And it might actually, it should do something slightly different. Yeah, cool. So it says receive read request. Here's the attributes we're trying to read, which is nice. And then we crash before we produce the response, which is fine. So let's stage that, and let's see if we can commit now. Definitely need a walk. I just had a walk before. I don't know. Just had to sign my commit. And we're just going straight to main, I think. Is there anything? I gotta think about this data type thing. Is probably okay. It's just kind of weird. It's weird. Crossing that, like, we use descriptors and class structures for the data model, and then we're converting it into the action model's structures. The other thing we could do is, instead of having an anything attribute, we could just say set data and get data. I don't even know if get data needs to worry about type. I guess it would, to know how to decode it. Yeah, the other option is to not use an attribute, because it's a weird case where you need both to know the type information and the value itself, or the Python encoded value, but the Python version of the value. I'm not going to solve it while I'm yawning like this, so I'm going to call it early, just because my brain's gone. So, and I don't see any other questions. So let me go back to camera. Thank you all for hanging out with me as I get my brain in CircuitMatter mode a little bit and also get distracted by Legos. It's been a pleasure talking with you. If you want to support me, you can go to adafruit.com, purchase hardware there. That they pay me to stream and work on CircuitPython and CircuitMatter. So thanks to the Adafruit folks. If you want to, hey, Wire says, I enjoyed last week's stream. I was excited about the P4. My buddy enjoyed the Raspberry Pi update. So P4 is checked in with the huge caveat that USB support is not in there yet. So it's only over the serial link. But yeah, the P4 work I was doing last week is checked into CircuitPython, and we'll do some follow-up work as TinyUSB gets P4 support as well, which I just saw Tack is getting his dev kit in the next couple days. He's the one that he works on TinyUSB for Adafruit. Adafruit pays him as well. And Espresso's going to upstream and just did a release so that they could do a second release. And if they break things, you can always use the older one. So I'm off the critical path for P4 right now. But I think it's pretty neat. I'm excited for them. Like, they said they are going to have new silicon because the serial UART JTAG thing doesn't work. But yeah, it's looking pretty neat. So yeah, support me, adafruit.com. If you want to chat with me and a bunch of other cool people in this middle chat here, it's on Discord. The short link for that is adafru.it/discord. That'll drop you into our Discord chat there. We're around all week, and you can ask questions there too. Yeah, great. Thanks. Have a great weekend. I'll see you next week. I don't think there are any leave plans yet. I should say that Deep Divers role on Discord, so you can ask to be added to the Deep Divers role, and I'll ping people if things change. So that if I thought I was going to have a deep dive and end up having a baby, that's how I would let you know that plans have changed for deep dive. So if you are wanting to join deep dives again, I'd suggest getting on the Discord and being a deep diver. I don't mention it more than like once or twice a week, so shouldn't bother you. And I think you do get a color. Oh, you can add emoji for things too, can't you? Do we have a we should have the snorkel. The snorkel for the deep divers if we don't have it already. Anyway, I'm gonna get out of here and do some Lego shopping before I walk home. Here is the window cam. It is not working. Oh, that's the wrong one. This one's the right one. It's clouded up, so it's going to be a little bit of a less sunny walk home, but it's not raining. And as we get into fall, it's going to rain more and more. So